Imagine being promised something that would not only change your life for the better, but also your family and generations to come. Now, imagine that same promise being disregarded and stripped away as if it never happened. Over the past few weeks, I've studied the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule. The three main points I want to focus on today are the historical origins of its context, the outcomes during the Reconstruction period, and the residual effects on the African American community today. To begin, let's take a look at where this promise came from and how it was introduced. Professor Cynthia Nicoletti, a legal historian specializing in Reconstruction law, published an article in June 2025 to Scholarship Law at UPenn titled Reconstructing the Meaning of 40 Acres and a Mule. In the article, it informs us that General William T. Sherman passed Field Order Number 15 in January of 1865. This special field order designated coastal lands of Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina to newly freed African Americans. It was in order to help them transition from slavery to freedom. This promise was quickly overturned when white landowners were unsatisfied with their land, and wanted their land back, where freed people were settled. President Andrew Johnson sympathized with them and returned the land to its former owners by the end of 1866. Now that we understand how the promise was reversed, let's move into the immediate aftermath in the Reconstruction period. Professor William A. Darity, an economist and leading scholar on racial wealth inequality, discusses the economic consequences of the unfulfilled land promise in his 2008 article published in the journal Social Science Quarterly, titled 40 Acres and a Mule in the 21st Century. Land would be the basis for self-sufficient black farming after emancipation. But Southern landowners regained control, leading a lot of these newly freed African Americans to depend on their former masters. Unfortunately, the effects did not end during the Reconstruction. In fact, the economic consequences still shape the financial conditions of many African American communities today. The Institute for Policy Studies sponsored an article in 2017 on inequality.org titled, Who Owns Almost All America's Land?, informing readers of the massive disparity of land ownership in the United States. African Americans, despite making up about 13% of the population, own less than 1% of the rural land in America. An article sponsored by the National Farmers Union, published on their official website in 2020 titled Juneteenth and the Broken Promise of 40 Acres and a Mule, provided a statistic to support this claim. The value of 40 acres and a mule for those 40,000 freed slaves would be worth $640 billion today. So, as we come to an end, it's important to step back and consider this promise. 40 acres and a mule represents a lot more than just a historical phrase. It represents hope, it represents perseverance, and the strength of a community to continue to push forward when the answer is no. Today, we explore the historical context of the origin of 40 Acres and a Mule, the outcomes during the Reconstruction period, and the residual effects on today's African American community. And so, I can't help but wonder, if those African Americans were given the land that they were promised to receive, how differently would our community look today?